today's tutorial we're going to work on the Sugar and Shine baby Afghan, and this is a granny square and it is absolutely luxurious. It is fun, it is sweet, so sweet. I'm calling it my Sugar and Shine. Now I've decided to use, me, if you know me well, I don't like to switch brands off when I'm doing projects, but I'm actually using two different brands of Bernat yarn. I decided to go with the Bernat's baby coordinate here, and obviously you can change colors to whatever suits the sex of your baby. And what you can do is that this yarn here provides such a soft and shimmering glow to it that this is why I'm calling it my Sugar and Shine Afghan. I also decided to really top up the softness with using the Bernat satin yarn, and I'm using 3 colors altogether. You can use more, you can use less. If you're going to do this, I'd recommend 6 balls altogether, so maybe get 2, 2, and 2. And now let's get you started on this. You're also going to need a 4.5mm crochet hook or a size G, whatever you prefer. So now let's get started on the Sugar and Shine baby granny square Afghan. So now let's get started and create a slip knot. Now you'll notice in the original picture that I provided that we started off with the pink baby coordinates first. I'm going to start off with the satin with this one. It doesn't matter which one you want to start with. You're the artist, you choose what works for you. I want you now to chain 4. This does not count as 1. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. We need to create a loop for the very center, so for people that don't know how to do a granny square, this is a great tutorial for that. Just put it into the starting one and just grab the material and just pull it through and through. Okay, and now we have a ring. So here's the straggler, and I want you to put it and squeeze it with the one side of the ring. Okay, and now I want you to chain up 3. So 1, 2, and 3, and I want you to now come down into the center of the ring that you see underneath. So wrap in the material, and I want you to double crochet 2 times there. So grab it, pull it through, and through. So double crochet. Let's review. Grab the material, go through the center of the loop of the ring. See how the straggler is on top? That's going to get trapped in a position. Pull through 2 and 2. Okay, and there's other dedicated double crochet tutorials available online if you're interested in that further. So let's chain 2, 1 and 2. Let's go back to the center of the ring for another 3 double crochet. So we're creating the foundation square of the center of your granny square. And now we're ready to turn a corner. Every time we turn a corner in this project, it's always chain 2. So 1 and 2. And how do you know you're changing corner? Because I'm telling you to. That's as simple as it gets, folks. So so let's do 3 double crochet in a row again. Usually most granny squares, it's always chaining a 2 when you hit a corner. So we're hitting another corner. So you got one side, second, third. So 1 and 2, and now let's do it 3 double crochets again into the center of the ring. Okay, and now we want to finish off this round, and so just like we chained 2 in all the other corners, we have to chain 2 here. Okay, and we want to come to the top of this chain that we started with. So just slipping it into the top, pull through and through. This is called a slip stitch. Okay, so your straggler that you had when you were pinching it will eventually kind of hang out of the project, so we just got to grab some scissors. I always say fancy dancy scissors, if you know me. Grab your scissors, snip it, and because you buried it when you wrapped everything around, you'll notice that there's no starting, so everything's completely hidden. Isn't that cool? So now let's start up your next round. So remember I told you we're going to change colors every 2 rounds. So this is round number 1. Let's chain up 3. 1, 2, and 3. The big difference between my teaching and a lot of everybody else is that where they start the corner is different. So how I do it is you chain up 3, and now you're going to double crochet twice into the gap that is directly underneath this chaining of 3. So we got 1 double crochet, 2 double crochet. Now in granny squares, I always say that the flat piece is the runway, kind of like a model runway. So whenever we're going on top of the runway, we always chain 1 in between each of the puffs of 3 double crochet stitches. Okay, these can be considered clusters as well. So we're now going to go into the next corner for 3 double crochet. Okay, we're turning the corner, so you remember what my rule was? We chain 2. So to turn a corner now, we have to come back into where this is originating and now put 3 more double crochets into that same spot. You see that? So you got the runway here, the first corner. So now we chain 1 because we're on the top of the runway, and now the corner happens to be the next one. So every time we grow out bigger, so basically the corner, remember 3 double crochets, 1 or 2 chain, 3 double crochet. Okay, so remember that in between the runways, as we work along, it'll get bigger and bigger. Okay, so then the distance is going to be filled in with other gaps in the middle. I know that doesn't kind of make any sense to you if you're just a beginner, but stick with me. You won't get lost if you just keep following along. Okay, so the next corner was done. 3 double crochets with 2 chain, 3 double crochet. We're going to chain 1 because we're on the runway, we're on the top piece. And now we're just happen to run into the next corner again, so it's 3, 2, and 3. 3 double crochet, 2 chain, 3 double crochet into the same hole or stitch or gap, whatever you want to call it. You'll find that this project goes super fast when you're working with it, and it's one of those desirable kind of projects. We're now on the runway. We're going to chain 1, and remember when we started we chained 3, we 2 double crochets, so we're now going to finish this corner when we come back to it, which is right now, and we're going to put in 3 double crochet again. So when we started, we're actually starting with the partial of a corner, and we now need to join it back up, so we chain 2. Okay, and now we want to slip stitch to the top of the chain that we started with. Okay, so just stick your hook in, pull it through, and pull through. Okay, so now what we have is we have it completed. We got 2 rounds, and now I want you to cast off or fasten off. People will correct me on that one. Just cut your material. These scissors are horrendous. I think Daniel was cutting wire with those. So now just with this string here, I want you to grab it and pull it through that loop again, and now pull snug. And what I do is that I just take my hook and I just come through and I just circle it around the corner piece twice, because if you remember that when we put in our 2 or 3, 2, 3 into the corner, all of this is going to bury what is there. So by wrapping it around twice, this really does trap in a position a lot better. So I'm just going to do a weaved in fast, so I'm just going to go into the stitch and just kind of pull it through. And you can see that I'm pulling it through this gap here, because when you have something over top, it's going to capture it even better. So what I do is wrap it at twice, I weave it through here, and then I wrap it around this section here, just the first gap, and then we can safely trim it, and you can be assured that it won't fall out afterward. That's kind of the nice thing about it. So you can safely trim it now if you wish. And there is your first corner. Okay, we can trim that better when we get around to it. So now let's grab your next color, and I'm going to say let's let it be pink. Why not, right? So let's grab our next color. We're just going to create a slip stitch, or slip knot, sorry. I'm starting to fumble it a little bit. So this is where we ended right here. I can tell because it's not as clean looking as the others. And what I like to do is that I like to rotate it so that when I go to cast on the next color, I'm coming backward 1 corner. Okay, so then my first thing is going to go. The reason why I do that is that I don't want it to appear where I've stopped and started in a project to always be the same corner, because it's sometimes very obvious. So by just switching it around like that, it becomes a lot better. So let's just slip in your hook. The material is already on the hook. Okay, the slip knot is already on the hook. Just grab both both the straggler and the string, pulling it through. Okay, and now we want to grab both of them together again and just pull through those 2 stitches, those 2 loops, sorry. and now I want you to chain 2. So 1 and 2. If you have extra sticking out of the bottom here, you can just safely trim that. And now we're going to start this round. So to start this round, you just want to do 2 more double crochets because this counts as one of them. Okay, so now there's a gap in between the corners. So to do the runway here, you remember it's chain 1, and now we go into the next gap by putting 3 double crochets into the spot. Now I have received email in the past that people say that I'm wrong by only chaining 1 on the runway. That is your call. You can do whatever you want. I find that it just makes it a little bit tighter and a little more desirable, and that's just your call. So you're on the runway here, you want to stretch over to the next, so you're only chaining 1, and so now we begin a corner again, which is the 3-2-3 configuration, which is 3 double crochet, 2 chain, 3 double crochet. Now you can kind of see here, one of my stitches here did not go into the proper area. So it's easier to pull it out now because you may see that really grossly afterward. So make sure that if you see any errors as you're going along, that you correct it when you can and not just say, well, you know what, nobody's going to notice, because you're going to notice. So remember, it's the 3-2-3 configuration for the corner, 3 double crochet, 2 chain, 3 double crochet. So we're now back on the runway again, and we just want to stretch over. So we're going to chain 1, and we're going to go into the next gap for 3 double crochets. So every time in the gaps in between the corners, it's going to be 3 double crochets into each one, chain 1. Okay, so we're chaining 1 and we're back on the next corner. So we're doing our 3-2-3 configuration. I think by now you understand what that is. Chaining 2, 3 more double crochets in. Okay, chain 1 and 3 more double crochets in. Now don't limit your creativity to exactly what you see. I'm just changing colors every 2 lines. I find that to be adequate, but if you want to change it every line, you can. If you want to not change it at all and make it a solid piece, you can do that as well. Okay, so we're in the corner, so chain 2, back in. Okay, and back on the runway again, and we're in between. Okay, so I have to do another round of this because I told you I was changing colors every 2 lines. So to finish off this round, we chain 2, and then we just go into the top of the chain and we slip stitch. So we just pull that material through and through. So let me get you started on the next round here, and we're just going to fast forward and we're going to take you to the next color, which will obviously be the white. And now let's do that next. So we're now at the very end and we're ready to cast off, so I'm going to chain 2 because we're going to finish off this round, and we want to pull this material through and through like a slip stitch. Like a slip stitch, it is a slip stitch. And now let's trim that material with my fancy dancy non-sharp scissors, and let's pull the material through. And remember what I said to you before, is that we're just wrapping it around the corner section twice. And I'm just going to put it through the one section here, the one stitch. You're going to wrap it around this gap here. I'm going to pull it through. So I'm just kind of like pulling it through the stitches. And basically you're relying on the next layer to really tighten that in, and you can safely trim that if you wish at this point. So let's grab your next color, and this is the final color for me today, and it will be white. Create a slip knot, grab your hook, put it on, and remember what I told you, this is where we finished off here. I can just visually tell because I've been crocheting so long, but you can see it kind of looks different. So I'm going to come to the corner that's over here to start off with, and I just want to slip in the hook. Okay, grabbing both the straggler and the yarn piece, throw it over and through, so you'll now have two loops, grabbing both again and just pulling it through. In this case, unlike the last one, I have a little bit left over, which is cool. I can deal with that. So let's chain up 2, 1 and 2, and when we come in, if you have extra left over, just make sure you wrap around it so you come underneath for 2 double crochet like we normally would on a corner, and just make sure you come around it. You don't want to color bleed, so you don't want to drag it and then capture it again, because you want every line to be very unique in color. So I'm going to trim it at this point. I can safely do that because of the way that I did it. And now we're on the runway, so remember what we've taught you before, chain 1. Okay, and we're in the runway, so we put in 3 double crochets into each one of the gaps. Now you'll notice that piece of yarn just kind of fell out of this spot here. That's not a big deal. We're going to chain 1, because when we go to wrap it around this gap here, we're going to capture that again. Okay? And it's really going to tie it kind of permanently into position there. So that's one thing I like about crochet. It's very versatile when you want to. So let's chain 1. I got a viewer response from a lady saying that, you know, I should never film if I'm going to be making errors within the videos, and I think part of the errors is exactly what viewers would end up with. What happens when you do this? How can you fake that? You know, for most of us, you know, we can try to get 100% crochet projects off the ground, but sometimes it's just sometimes you got to know when to fake it and how to fake it, so nobody even knows it's there unless you do itself. So we're in the corner. It's a 3-2-3 configuration. We're chaining 1 and going into each one of the gaps and making sure we chain 1 in between the gaps. Okay, so this is how you would be able to grow this. So I would just do another layer of white on this, and then I would change the color again, go back to blue for 2, and then back to the pink, and etc. And this is exactly how you will do. Just keep going around and around, so you don't have any squares to attach. You're just going to make one big jumbo square for this baby's Afghan, and you want to go to, it's about 39 to 40 inches. That's the standard size of a baby's Afghan. You may find it will only take you about 6 to 8 hours, depending on your speed and your yarn that you chose. And again, just be very creative and excited about your projects. You know, when you're excited, people that will get it will be equally excited, I find. So good luck with that, and we'll see you next time on